Have you ever heard a silence so deep it feels like a presence? A quiet so complete it swallows every sound, every whisper, every beat of your own heart? Welcome to Ravenwood, a village clinging to the edge of a forest that holds its breath. They say that once this forest learns your name, it never lets it go. For generations, the people of Ravenwood lived with this profound silence. No birds sang, no wolves howled. It wasn't always this way. Legends tell of a time when the woods were filled with music. Until the night of the burning, the Night Lord Mortain and his family vanished within their grand mansion, deep in the forest's heart. After that, silence fell like a shroud, and the woods began to collect souls. 50 years later, a young photographer named Daniel Hale arrived, laughing at the local folklore. He was shooting a documentary on forgotten towns, and Ravenwood was a perfect, moody subject. The villagers were ghosts in their own homes, avoiding his camera and speaking in hushed tones. When he asked about the Mortain Mansion, they'd just cross themselves and walk away. Only the old innkeeper offered a warning. "If you go there," he rasped, his voice thin as paper, "don't answer when they call your name." Daniel, of course, didn't listen. The next morning, he ventured into the oppressive quiet. The path to the mansion was a graveyard of moss and bone. The deeper he went, the more the world seemed to fade, his own footsteps absorbed by the hungry earth. After what felt like an eternity, he saw it. Ravenwood Hall, a skeletal ruin half swallowed by the ground, wrapped in black, vein-like vines. The gate hung open, and carved into the archway were 3 chilling words: "The silence remembers." Inside, the air was thick, heavy with the smell of decay and something sickly sweet, like flowers left to rot. His flashlight beam cut through the gloom of the grand hall, illuminating a ruined chandelier and portraits of the Mortain family, their painted eyes gleaming with an unnatural light. He explored room after decaying room, each a frozen tableau of a life interrupted, a piano with fresh, dusty fingerprints on the keys, a dining table still set for 6, and then he saw it, a child's doll sitting upright on a chair, its porcelain face cracked into a sickening smile. He raised his camera, and as the flash fired, he saw something in the reflection of a glass cabinet behind the doll. For a split second, a woman stood there, her mouth wide in a silent scream. He blinked. She was gone. Just a trick of the light, he told himself, his heart hammering. Drawn by a faint light upstairs, he found a nursery, eerily untouched by time. In the center of the room was a crib. He reached out and pulled back the heavy fabric inside, revealing the tiny lace-wrapped skeleton of a child. A sudden cold gripped the room. From the hallway, a slow, deliberate tapping began. Footsteps, coming closer. He clicked off his flashlight, hiding behind the nursery door, his breath caught in his throat. The footsteps stopped right outside, and then, a voice, soft as a whisper on glass, slithered into the silence. "Daniel." He froze. It was a woman's voice, tender and completely, utterly wrong. How could it know his name? "Daniel, come downstairs." The innkeeper's words screamed in his mind. Asterisk, don't answer. Asterisk, he remained perfectly still, hardly daring to breathe. The floorboards outside creaked, as if someone were waiting, listening. After a long, terrible moment, the footsteps retreated, fading back into the oppressive quiet. He let out a shuddering breath and ran. He fled down the stairs and out the front door, but the fog outside had become a solid white wall. Blinded and disoriented, he stumbled through the mist, only to find himself right back at the mansion's entrance. No matter which way he ran, the house reappeared, the forest itself seeming to fold in on him. Defeated, he retreated inside to wait for dawn. He took refuge in the library, a vast room where every single book was filled with blank pages. On a large desk lay a single journal. The handwriting inside was frantic, smeared. "The forest has taken their voices," one entry read. Another said, "They come at night to whisper, they wear our faces, but they are not us." The final, terrifying entry was scrawled across the last page. "When the silence falls completely, it means they've chosen someone new." At that exact moment, the wind outside died. The world went perfectly, horribly quiet. He looked up and saw them in the reflection of the library window, dozens of pale figures standing at the edges of the room, their eyes empty sockets, their mouths sewn shut with black thread. As he turned, a humming began, not a sound, but a vibration that trembled through his very bones. One of them stepped forward, though its lips didn't move. A voice echoed in his mind. Asterisk, join us. Asterisk, he scrambled backward, and they vanished. His camera, lying on the floor, flashed once on its own. When his vision cleared, a tall mirror stood where nothing had been before. It reflected the library perfectly, but he wasn't in it. In his place stood a man who looked just like him, but with hollow, black eyes. The reflection smiled and raised a hand. The glass cracked, and black veins spiderwebbed across its surface. He ran, flinging open doors, but every room led only to another. He burst back into the grand hall just in time to see a long, jointed shadow slither across the ceiling. The doll in the corner turned its head, its stitched mouth tearing open. And finally, a sound broke the silence. A scream, not his, but 1,000 trapped voices, all crying out at once. The chandelier overhead groaned, and crashed down, plunging him into absolute darkness. When he awoke, He was outside. The fog was gone. The forest was quiet. He didn't look back. He walked until he reached the village where the innkeeper stood watching him, his face pale as death. "You went there," the old man whispered. Daniel could only nod. "Then you've brought them back." That night, the silence of Ravenwood finally broke. Voices called from the woods, the voices of loved ones long gone. Some villagers answered. They were never seen again. Days later, travelers found the village completely deserted. Where Ravenwood Hall once stood, there was now just a great, black pit in the earth, and half buried in the moss nearby lay a camera. The last photo it had taken was of the mansion, standing pristine and whole. In an upstairs window stood a figure, a man holding a camera, a faint smile on his face. He was identified as Daniel Hale, a photographer who had gone missing 5 years prior. Now, hikers in those woods sometimes report hearing the click of a camera shutter deep in the trees, followed by whispers of their own names. They call them the Silent Ones. So if you're ever walking in the deep, quiet places of the world, and you hear a voice call your name from the dark, don't answer. They only need you to listen once. Thanks for joining me on this terrifying tale. If you enjoy stories that linger in the shadows, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more. Stay safe out there, and until next time, try not to listen too closely to the silence.